Alrighty guys, well welcome to Amazon Seller Insights. This is Los Angeles, this is our headquarters. I'm John from Zonguru, and this is just a series, this is series 9 now, where we literally interview guys who are crushing it on Amazon, and it's just here for us to learn from them, to be inspired from them, and get a chance to ask them questions, and hopefully use it to inspire and grow your own Amazon business. So I'm pretty happy to have Nick and Fernando here with us today. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. They are pretty much the biggest sellers we've had at the series so far. They've grown their business from 6 to 7 to 8 figures in, I think, just under or just over 3 years, which is insane. And it's a private label business, which is amazing. So just think about that for a second. In 3 years, they've grown to literally doing over 10 million a year on Amazon. So I'm super pumped to just learn from these guys today, and hopefully I get to ask the right kind of questions so you guys can learn. But if not, you guys will get a chance a little bit later to ask them yourselves. So the first time I met these two guys was downtown LA. They're from Los Angeles, through a friend of mine, Anthony Bui-Tran. A lot of you guys know, and actually is a partner with these guys. I think what impressed me most was, one, just your ability to open your arms and speak to anyone about whatever part of your business that interested them. But secondly, about how you put together systems and how you align everything so that you can truly scale and grow your Amazon business. And that's an art in itself. I think being able to put together the right teams and the right vision and the right strategy and the right systems is an incredible art, and that's what makes guys successful. So I'm excited to jump into that in a little bit, but anyway, welcome guys. So let's dive into it. I think maybe let's start a little bit at the beginning. What was your why? I think you've had careers before, but what is your why? Why did you get into this business? And what drove you then? And is that different to now? It's a question to you guys.
Yeah. Okay, so I can start. So Nick and I are really like best friends from college. So we've known each other forever. Like had many kind of drunken nights. We grew up together basically. A lot of like our really important years were like together, and so we both started in corporate. Hated it. I mean, it was just not for either of us. Like I made it like a year and a half. I think he made it almost a year.
No, like 8 months.
Yeah, like we quit. Like we're just like, okay, like we're applying to startup jobs. We get like this most ridiculous like startup job. It was 100% commissioned like role. You make like $20 per close. Like I mean, we were like, if we were really really good salespeople, we'd make like 20 grand a year living in LA. And like it was just like this like amazing experience though, because it was one of the hottest companies in Santa Monica at the time. And then so we really like learned like a lot of what to do and then what not to do. Company ended up failing, so that was part of that we learned not to do. But then we went off to like our own respective companies. Nick went to a company here in Santa Monica. I moved up to SF, and that's like when we really saw like great organizations like scale. And then, I mean, after 2 years, it was kind of like, okay, we've like helped build these companies. Like we don't have enough equity to like really like see this through for the next like 3, 5, 10 years. And then, so like, yeah, I was, down back in LA. And actually, yeah, why don't you take it?
Yeah, and I remember having breakfast with Fernando. And, I was at a point at work where, we'd built a lot of processes. I had built a lot of processes. I know Fernando had too. And I felt comfortable just knowing that, there's a lot of things I didn't know how to do when I first started at the startup, but I ended up making it work. And I think that's like, the real thrill of building something and what you learn from working at a startup is you learn to just build something out of nothing. And so, with starting a business, I felt comfortable knowing that, I wouldn't know everything, but I figured that both Fernando and I were at a point where we would feel comfortable just figuring it out. And so I remember Fernando was visiting, we had breakfast, and I was like, dude, we need to start a company. And Fernando like instantly was like, I'm down. And right after that, we just started like planning everything out. And so, for the next 3 months before we quit, we were just planning it out. And honestly, we weren't even sure what we were gonna do. Like, we were literally just gonna resell stuff on eBay. We figured we couldn't do software because none of us were engineers, we were more sales and marketing people. And so, one of our friends, fortunately, was pretty successful in e-commerce. He sold the company when he was like 21 for like, close to $30 million, super successful dude.
Wow.
But yeah, he convinced us to leave our jobs and just try. And so literally like 2 days before I quit, I called Fernando. I'm like, hey, let's start like this lifestyle e-commerce site. And we started this like Shopify store, which was based around like reselling products that we loved, to the Tim Ferriss crowd, who's like, we love Tim Ferriss. He's like, our god kind of. And then like we spent 6 months trying that, just busting our ass every day, and it just was not working. And so like I remember one day, like when we were just close to being like, okay, we need to figure something out. The Amazon box came for some office supplies that we'd ordered, and I was like, why are we even selling things on Shopify when we can sell things on Amazon? Like, I only buy things on Amazon anyway, and that's kind of how we started. And so, we went ahead and sourced a couple of products. We had just figured out what FBA was at that time. In our first month, we did more revenue than the past 6 months combined working on the Shopify thing. And we were like, okay, we need to drop everything and just focus on this. And that's kind of how we got the ball rolling on, starting the Amazon business.
Wow, that's amazing. It's, it takes an entrepreneur to look at a box at a door and be like, okay, wait, that's a serious like business. It's not just a product lying at a door, So that's amazing. But what is your reason for doing that? Did you always want to have your own business, or was there like a specific thing where you're just like, was there someone who told you something, or an event, or something that made you jump?
Yeah, I mean, I referenced Tim Ferriss earlier, and when I was in college, I know for me, like up until my senior year, I was like, I'm going to be an iBanker. I'm going to be a consultant, and I had no idea why. Like, I just knew those were like things that people wanted to be. And I remember reading this book, The 4-Hour Workweek. If you haven't read it, you probably should. It's amazing. For me, it was like a paradigm shift, where I started to realize and really question why I wanted to do these things. And it made me realize that I was doing it because I thought it was prestigious. I thought it was important, when in reality, I wanted to actually design a lifestyle where I had pure freedom, where I could do what I wanted to do. And that's where the switch really flipped for me, to thinking, okay, well, I need to think outside of the box and really determine like, what is it that I want versus what is it that I think people want from me. And that's kind of the flip. And for me, in terms of why, I mean, I don't think there's any better vehicle for learning about yourself than through starting a business. You're constantly challenged. Each level that you take a business to, like, let's say the $5 million mark, there's a new set of challenges, and you have to change yourself in order to make it happen and take it to the 10 million. And from 10 to 15, it's always changing, and it's really up to you to decide whether you want to kind of approach the problem and grow, with your business. So for me, that's my why.
Yeah, I mean, my why is maybe a little bit different. Like, so my parents got divorced when I was in maybe 7th grade. And then so it went from normal kind of middle class family to two separate homes, two separate incomes. And then so we went from a very normal childhood to not as normal. And yeah, I mean, seeing both my parents struggle independently was a really big thing, for me, because it was just something that I'd never experienced. We'd do our kind of vacation every year and everything. And then so seeing them both struggle independently, I was like, man, I never want to be in that position again. So ever since I was a kid, I was finding ways to make money, buying knives and lighters from Chinatown and then selling it at my high school for a ridiculous margin. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of just my drive, because it was kind of that fear of going back to that lifestyle. So yeah, I think kind of all boils back a lot for me to childhood.
Yeah, that emotional motivator is an important thing for sure. So let's start talking about the Amazon business, because you guys have, it's insane that you've grown it this quickly and this big. And you've obviously got a specific strategy of how you go after niches, how you scale, and how you, because I'm assuming you're not just selling one product. so maybe tell the group here and tell us what's the strategy in terms of how you go after niches and marketplaces, and how you actually scale, and how you guys kind of grow the business.
Yeah. So I mean, I think in the beginning, I like to call it we were throwing spaghetti at the wall. Literally, we would throw one product out, we'd see if it does well or not, great, and then move to the next product, completely new category, completely new niche, and then we just kept throwing products out. And
was this just to interrupt for a second, but was this self-taught, or did you look at some courses? Like, what was the?
Yeah.
you guys
So.
just, give it a shot, or-
Yeah, I mean, so we actually hired a coach in the beginning because we had saved some money from like our previous startups. So we had some money to invest. We were also doing this full time, so we were running out of money very, very quickly. So actually, like a story that a lot of people don't know is that actually when we were like really running out of money, we actually ended up driving for Uber at night, like working during the day, just to make sure that we were like reinvesting everything into the business.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of like our product selection strategy, like, yeah, we're going after, so this is like, I guess, February of 2015. So like we're going after like more saturated products. So a lot of our products were like silicone kitchen products in the beginning, which is like, please don't do those products. Like they're just a nightmare. Because yeah, they're basically what everyone teaches you to do, right? It's like small, if it's in a shoebox, it's lightweight, it's not breakable. And yeah, everyone else thinks the exact same way. So you just get like hundreds, if not thousands of like exactly the same product, or there's like, 100 comparables. And so yeah, I mean, I think our product selection really like evolved to going after like smaller niches. And then something that we like to call like the monopoly method is like we find like this niche that's like really like profitable. So like maybe the PPC isn't as expensive, it's easy to rank. And then like, okay, like great, we found this product, and then we'll launch like 10 more in that specific niche. So everything from different colorways to different quantities to different like everything that we know, because we know that like specific keyword, it was easy for us to rank. So we'll just take over that entire category as much as that we can. So that like, I think a great brand that does this incredibly well is like Anchor or like Kleenex, right? If you search tissues, like you're gonna see like a ton of different variations that like Kleenex has merchandised differently, or same thing with Anchor. And they've like really nailed that strategy down for like the keywords that they really care about.
Yeah, and the Anchor guy is, it's him and his wife, right? It's just a small family little business, and they've just completely dominated Amazon. So yeah, that's and so is cash flow like a big thing in the beginning? Do you take a little bit and test a niche, or do you do your analysis with the tools that you have and then decide, okay, this is an opportunity, and then you throw a lot of money in it, or do you test first and then throw your money? Like how do you guys do that when you launch?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think cash flow is one of the make or breaks of a small business, right? Every entrepreneur at some point is going to face an issue with cash flow, and we certainly did in our second year. In fact, we actually had a situation where we, literally did not have 3 months left of runway left in our business, and we had to let go of more than half of our team, and that was like one of the toughest moments of our life. And we had to just come back and say, okay, well, look, our numbers like scaled, like we grew 300% this year, but like what happened? And when we dug into the numbers, we realized that we were actually way less profitable than we were the year before. And it's exactly what Fernando was talking about, which is, we weren't focusing on the right numbers. We were looking at top line revenue, right? Coming from startups, you're so used to looking at top line, you'll figure out the bottom line. But we realized right there and then that we needed to really dial in and know on a per SKU basis how profitable we were for every single SKU. Otherwise, we would not be able to survive. And based off of those metrics that we decided, we had to let go of certain SKUs that weren't returning on our minimum requirements. So that was like our first learning lesson about cash flow, about how important margins are for returning better cash flow, how important it is to turn around inventory quickly as many times as possible in a year so that you can get your cash back. Because if you're returning, if your margins are 40% on a product that turns over once a year, it doesn't mean as much as a product that does 20% return like 3 or 4 times a year, right? And so that was our big learning lesson around cash flow. And so I think for any entrepreneur looking to scale and grow, it's really important to dial that in and fully understand like how that impacts your business.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not about turnover; it's about leftover, right? Which is the most important thing. Yeah. So you guys had this incredible opportunity at a startup before you guys got into this business, and obviously you learned a hell of a lot there. Did any of that flow over into your Amazon business in terms of, was there systems and ways of doing things? Because like, how did you guys, one of the things I'm assuming, and from talking to you guys before, one of the things you guys do amazingly well is build the right team and the right system and the right processes and the right architecture for your business. Where did you learn that? Was that just in the business and you guys figured it out, or did you get a lot of that from the startups that you had before?
I would say a lot of it was from the startups before. I mean, we had so much autonomy at the startups we used to work at. For me specifically, I worked at this company that did outsourcing, and when I joined them, they did like 4 million in revenue. Now, like this past year, they're going to do like 300 or 400 million. It's crazy, but basically, I mean, they grew from like 1,000 employees in total to now 12,000, and it was all mostly outsourced in the Philippines. So for me, that was a really important learning lesson of really being able to protect your margins by finding talented people overseas, and the importance of building processes so you can scale them, into infinite. So that for me was really a big learning lesson. And also, we had to do a lot of projects for like startups, so we got to be intimately familiar with the different processes that they had and how they would utilize talent overseas to kind of help them push that forward. But
yeah, I mean, my startup experience was really crazy. Like, so we had like no U.S. like presence at the time. Like when I got hired, so I was like a second hire. The CEO flies over from Japan to like greet me on my first day because we'd never met in person. And then he's like, "Hey, I need you to figure out how to get like 500 customers, hopefully half of them paying." And that's it. Like we have no customers, no product, no like partners, nothing. And then I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Here's your laptop. Like, go nuts." And it's just like, whoa. And then, so yeah, I mean, like fast forward, like, yeah, we were like valued at like 80 million, like 2 years later. But it was like really like understanding like, okay, like what are the KPI? Like what's going to be like, I can't do all of this myself. So like I need to build like teams. So then it was like hiring the right marketing team, like hiring the right sales team, like the recruiting team, like our customer support team. And then it was just like, okay, like I need one person at least that's way better than me at this specific thing. And then like, I'm not gonna do this anymore. And then it was just like, I spent at least half my time recruiting, which is an amazing experience because yeah, coming into this, then it's just like, okay, I know how to hire people. Like I know, like I'm confident that I can find like good, strong people. And like, that's like what we need to do instead of like trying to do everything ourselves, which I think is what like a lot of like first time entrepreneurs do is like they kind of like truthfully like micromanage and like they really feel like no one else can do it or like that they're going to do the best job. And I mean, honestly, like that's just not how you're going to scale. And so I think that's been like one of like the best lessons that we've probably learned over the last few years is like learning to let go and hire people that are better than you.
That's an awesome insight for sure. So you've grown. I guess how do you get into a 5 to a 6 to a 7 to an 8-figure Amazon business? What is the difference between them? Is it mentality? Is it systems? Is it a specific way of growing? Like what's the differences between those businesses? Is it just time and learning over time? But maybe you can help everyone understand. If I've got a 6-figure Amazon business, what's the difference between that and having a 7-figure? What do I need to do?
Yeah. So I look at it a little bit like differently. Like, I mean, I think like the revenue is definitely important. But I think of it kind of like just slightly different. But yeah, like kind of like a stable company, and like an unstable company. And so like I've met people with one product line that do 7 figures a year, which is amazing. But like I think that's like really like unstable because I think like or unstable, yeah. But yeah, like there's a lot of risk because it's like
diversified.
Yeah, because it's not diversified. Like if like I mean I was like just shopping yesterday like on Amazon and like like Amazon Basics is coming out really hard on a lot of like consumable products, and so they're being shown at the front. And so like if you're really like heavy in one specific like product line, then I think like there's just a ton of risk there. But I think like overall to like scale, like yeah, I mean I feel like being diversified is incredibly important. I would say like cash flow and like margin, like watching your margins I think is incredibly important. And I think honestly like not doing everything because like I constantly see people like sourcing and customer support and administrative and like all that kind of stuff where you can just hire one specific person even if it's part-time, ideally maybe from another Amazon company that can kind of offload a lot of that stuff for you. And I think that's huge so that you can focus on like the bigger growth drivers. So like, product selection is like a big one. Like that is the fastest way that we've been able to grow. Like we're launching like 10 to 15 products a month. And so like there's just no way we would have gotten there if we were still handling like, the little things like sourcing and support and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so you're launching 10 to 15 new private label products a month right now. That's That's pretty impressive. How do you do that? I mean, is it just building the team and the SOPs so they know how to go ahead and find that, or how have you actually built it so that you guys are now doing 10 to 15?
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of leads to what you were asking is like, what's it like being a 6, 7, 8-figure business? What are the differences? And I think, you know, everyone can relate to the feeling of having your head cut off, right? Feeling like you're running around, you're trying to fix everything, you're constantly putting out fires. And I'm very intimately familiar with that because I'm directly responsible for the marketplace and stuff. And so there's just everything, all these things that can happen with Amazon. But it wasn't until, you know, once we hit that 8-figure mark, you know, we finally had a team built, and I felt confident then that team could handle everything. And I didn't have to just worry and follow up every single time because we had a reliable team that understood, and there were SOPs obviously, but more importantly, I think there were really talented people. And I think, you know, it's so easy if you're a first-time entrepreneur to compromise on talent, right? Sometimes you make excuses for them. You think, oh, you know, like they don't really understand, or maybe they just don't understand English as well, or maybe this and that. And what we realize, like, you know, in the middle of our business is that when you're making excuses, that's when you realize, when you should know that they're probably just not a good fit. You know, a good employee is going to be one that just like from the get-go, you're like, holy crap, I can't believe you're even here. Like, this is amazing. I didn't even think about doing that. Like, they're going to be just like what Fernando said, better than you. And I think until you have a team of people that you feel like can do a better job than you, and they should be able to do a better job because they're spending 100% of their time doing, you know, 10% of what you were doing before, then you'll be able to get to the point where you're launching products really regularly. So now I feel like, you know, we're no longer, you know, we're trying to move our business from being like a top-down organization where we have to direct everything to where it's more feedback loop oriented. So like, you know, we're doing the strategy, but we're also hearing from our middle managers about what's going on the front lines, what our customers are saying, and we're taking that feedback and then making bigger decisions in terms of, okay, well, where do we want to be in 4 years? How does that impact, you know, what's going to happen next year, or what decisions and strategic priorities we need to make? And that's kind of the transition we're going to, because, you know, now we have really, really talented people, which, you know, hats off to them, because it's really all them.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, for me to break that down, I would probably say treat your one SKU or your one product the same way as if you had, you know, an 8-figure business, and actually set up your SOPs and your team and everything so that probably your first one you have to really do yourself, but then, you know, try and build your team around that one flow and then one unique way from the beginning, so that you have something that's scalable, and then you can grow to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and then do 15 a month.
Yeah, I agree. Like, you got to really invest a lot into training, and I think a lot of people are probably, you know, they don't want to do that because it takes a lot of time. You're not sure if they're going to do it right. But, you know, really early on, I think, you know, we made the decision that we wanted to make sure that we had people who could train other people for us. And so we didn't want to keep being those people that people would always come to. And so now we don't have to train anyone. Like, you know, it lives outside of us. And I think that's the ultimate goal of building a business. It's like, how do you breed something that you aren't a slave to? You know, that's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, so you still have the freedom to do what you wanted to do in the first place, right? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's get into, we had talked about like maybe presenting to the group 5 tips or 5 insights that you have around how they can grow their Amazon businesses. And maybe you guys have some input there for these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first one for me is like bringing it back to like cash flow and like ROI, contribution margin, just to go over them like kind of quickly. But like, yeah, I think most people will like understand like ROI, but that's like, you know, just taking like what your gross profit is after ads for like a specific product. So after the FBA fees, after your referral fees, after your storage, like basically after all the variable costs, you're getting your contribution margin, which is a huge percentage that we're constantly looking at for all of our products. And then if you take that and then you divide your contribution margin by your cost of goods landed per unit, you're getting like your true like ROI. And then so you're basically figuring if it's like over 100%, below 100%. And like I'm constantly like meeting people that are like, oh, I have this like product and it's doing great and it's like at a 50% ROI. And I'm like, okay, like that's awesome. Like, and I'm really happy for you. But like honestly, that means you're investing $1 and only getting 50 cents back. Where like a lot of our like best products are like 300, 400, 500%. So if we're investing $1, we're getting like 3, 4, or 5 back. And so I think like really like truly like understanding your numbers is probably like one of like the best moves that you can make. Like, we don't look at ourselves like really as like an e-commerce company. Like, you know, while that like might seem like silly, but we look at ourselves more like a finance company. And so like we're looking to invest in like the right products that are going to return like the most cash as quickly as possible.
I mean, yeah, I'm hammering this point again, but again, like I think the big thing is like hiring the right people and hiring analytical people. You know, I think it's really important that when you're going through the hiring process that you give people a case study of what kind of work you expect them to do. Because I think one of the biggest wastes of time is training someone for 3 weeks and then realizing they're not a good fit. And really trying to minimize that damage early on by giving them actual work. A lot of people won't even do it, you know, or they'll just do a really terrible job even though they sounded really good on the phone. And so that really just saves you so much time, because I think, you know, in terms of starting a business, time is everything. So I'd say, you know, making sure that you do your due diligence when you're doing your hiring and not settling. You know, I think when you find the right person and you talk to them, they're going to teach you something on the phone. And that's when you know it's the right person. I remember when we had when we hired our logistics manager, we were thinking, is it possible to hire someone who can do all of our freight forwarding, handle all our logistics, you know, in the Philippines? And literally we were like recruiting this person for like, you know, a month. And then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, this lady sounds really cool. Let's hop on the phone. And right in the first 15 minutes, Fernando and I would just like stare at each other like we found her. And that was like, you know, the beginning of where we realized that we could find more and more people like that. And so yeah, I mean, just don't settle when it comes to the people that you hire.
And do a lot of your hires come out of, you know, the Philippines and international countries? And how do you manage that?
That's a great question. So we have right now about 55 people, and only 4, including me and Fernando, are in the US. Everyone else is in the Philippines, and everyone is work from home remote. And so in terms of how we manage them, we actually, like, by the time we got to like employee maybe 20, Fernando made the great decision to hire an HR manager, and that just completely transformed everything. Because it made it so that, you know, she would conduct the initial interviews, she'd be able to look at resumes, she'd actively screen candidates, and also build internal like documents, like, you know, how the organizational chart, different tools that we would use. Because I mean, I don't think I realized at the time how much time we were spending just interviewing and trying to find candidates and just reviewing resumes. And that just helped us scale to like, you know, more than 50 employees within just the span of like 6 months. So I would say, like, if you're at that 15-person mark, maybe even beforehand, you know, you might want to consider hiring like a part-time HR manager, because that just took a huge load off of us.
Yeah, just a point on that is that I think, you know, you guys are at a very different level to probably a lot of people in this room, but those same principles apply, you know, and just to break that down, I think, like, if you're sitting there and you're feeling like you're a little flustered and you're not sure how you're growing and your time is sucked up, like, actually break down what you spend your day on, and then take whatever is the 40% or the 30% and then say, okay, maybe this is something I need to hire out. And in your case, it was an HR person, which was a great move. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. And there's like great like screen recording apps. Like I know, like, I use Cloud App all the time, and I'm sure there's like a ton of. Oh yeah, Loom's another great one. Like, but like if I'm doing something like for the like first time or whatever, like, and I have like, and this is like very few things that I actually do like on like task wise now, because we have so many like employees. But like, if for whatever reason that I need to, like, I will make sure to like record that, or use like one of those Skype recording calls if I'm like working something through like with an employee, and then I make them save it in like in our drive, and then like organize it and like title it so that I never have to look at this again. And I think like that's like a huge thing, is that like my goal is to never do the same thing like twice, and like honestly for most tasks, like I'm never doing once. But yeah, I guess to the next point, I think like tip, I think like prioritization is huge. Sorry, but yeah, I think you know, e-commerce is such a like an exciting industry right now, and there's like, you know, just within Amazon, right, there's like merch, and there's private label and wholesale and OA and RA and like, I don't know, a million other things you can do, consulting, and that's not even going into the other like modes of like e-commerce. And I meet like new sellers all the time that are kind of hedging their bets, and they're like, you know, I'm gonna do like a little bit of RA, I'm gonna make some money, then I'm gonna research my private label product, and I think, you know, that's like great and well intentioned, But if you're trying to learn 5 different business models at the same time, there's just no way that you're going to do any of them as well if you just focus on one. And so like if you're wanting to do RA or OA or whatever to like build a nest egg, like do that. But like do that and do it really dang well until you have like someone else that's running it for you, and then start private label. But like if you're trying to build like these 5 business units, like we don't do any of those other than private label. And like we have 55 and we're still growing. Like, and like, I mean, it's just like that focus is what allows you to be like really exceptionally good at one thing versus like just trying to do all of them because you're hedging your bets.
Yeah, and I would probably add prioritization and patience. I think patience is really something as us as business entrepreneurs, you have to learn that. You have to have a vision and you have to stick with it, but you have to be patient because you have to plant that seed and it has to go for a while before it really starts to boom. So and with private label, that's super important too.
Yeah, I want to add to what Fernando said because I think it's so important. But I think one thing that we can probably all relate to is falling into the trap of being busy versus effective. A lot of times you're just checking things off the box. You're like, oh, I need to call seller support. I need to do this. I need to do that. And if you actually like think about it, does that move your business forward? And a lot of times, especially with Amazon, every single day there's a fire to put out. Every single day something happens to your listing. And it's important, obviously, to put the listing back up or to fix the images or whatever, but is it the best use of your time? Is it going to grow your business? We know as a business that the thing that's directly tied to revenue and profitability is always more SKUs, no matter what. And so that's where we should be focusing most of our time, and everything else should be outsourced or everything else should be delegated to someone else. But I think the problem is like you can get distracted by like Facebook ads, ManyChat. Not to say that these aren't good things, but if you don't have the fundamentals figured out, you don't know where you need to spend 80% of your time, and you're not doing it where it needs to be done, then I think that's what's really hindering your growth from hitting that 7-figure and 8-figure mark. Because a lot of times it's just so easy to succumb to that. I was doing graphic design until like earlier this year, and like I there was just a sense of control that I had. But now that like someone else is doing it, I mean, now I can really focus my time just really actually thinking about the business, and it's made such a massive impact.
And the person's doing it better than you too.
Yeah, exactly. Way better, way better for sure. Yeah, so I just added to that because I don't have more tips. So Fernando.
Nice.
Let's take it on the tip side. Maybe, what is the best tip to, if you're just starting on Amazon? Like, I'm sure there's a bunch of you. Who's just starting on Amazon here in the group? Okay, so there's a few of us, but maybe if you're more at that, like, okay, I've launched my first SKU or my second, what's the best advice you can give them at that kind of level?
Yeah.
Other than the things you just said. But
yeah, I mean, okay, so I would say like thinking about kind of like where you want the business to be and kind of, let's say like 1 year from now. And then trying to figure out like what needs to happen for you to be like in that kind of dream state or that like goal, and trying to like work backwards. So we'll do this like, so at the beginning of this year, or sorry, December of last year, we decided like, okay, we're gonna shoot for 2 million in EBITDA this year for 2018. And then it's just like, okay, what do we need to do like in terms of milestones? We need to hit this much in Q4, this much in Q3, this much in Q2, this much in Q1 to hit that. Like how many new products do we need to launch? Like what kind of team do we need? Like all that kind of stuff. And it was like a whole day and a half probably of planning. And then so like, even if you're like at your like, your product number 2, like, let's say by December, I want to have 5 products live selling on Amazon. So and then it's like, okay, well, let's say December 1st is like, they need to be like, or let's say November 1st, they need to be within FBA. So and then if it's going to take you, let's say 40 days of shipping, then you can subtract that back. And then like, okay, 25 days of production, like subtract that back. And then just like having like specific deadlines, and then like making sure that you and like the team are really, really focused on hitting those specific deadlines. Because if it's kind of like, oh, like, I'm going to launch these products at some point and like it's going to happen at some point. And if you don't have that kind of like urgency, like every single day when you're going in like, shit, I have like 2 weeks before I need to place these purchase orders. Otherwise I'm going to miss the goal. And like, just like understanding that. And I think that makes you kind of like move a lot faster when you have like the kind of a place where you want to be in a very short period of time.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I actually call those minor stones of your milestones, because you have a milestone, you break those down into minor stones. I've got like maybe one or two questions that we can open up to you guys, but what about the Amazon space at the moment? What trends do you guys see? What's the next year going to look like from your guys' perspective? A little bit on that would be great.
Yeah, so I would say that Fernando mentioned earlier that Amazon's been going ham on just launching their own private label stuff. So I think that's inevitable. Like Amazon is going to continue to keep doing that, and so they're especially doing that in really like generic products that are easy to replicate, where they can just slap a label on, which probably represents a lot of private labelers. So I think more now than ever, it's so important to create a unique product, and even if it's not unique to the extent of like having your own mold or whatever, merchandising your product in a unique way. I mean, there should be, at no point should you sell, like let's say someone's selling, I don't know, this light. You shouldn't sell just one light just like the other person. It doesn't make sense because they've already set the price point for the product. You're limited by how much they've already set the price for, unless conceivably there's a reason why your product can be more expensive. But there's no reason why you should sell a Me Too product. You should be unique in how you bundle it, how you merchandise a product, what unique features are obvious about the product to your customer. And I think that's something that in this day and age where it's definitely more competitive than when we first entered in 2014. That's just a bare minimum, I would say.
Yeah, you've got to be able to answer that question. If I'm on page one, why is someone going to choose my product over someone else's? And more importantly, how can I make them choose it and still charge a premium on my product? So that differentiation skill is super important. Cool. I think maybe how important has like mentorship and masterminds been to you guys? You talked a little bit earlier about coaches and stuff like that. Is that something that you guys invest in and do a lot of? And is it helpful, or how would you guys go about learning and growing?
Yeah, I think it's been incredibly helpful. I can say in the beginning when we first started out, we hired a coach, and we spent a lot of money, but it was incredible. In terms of just how much to order, is this a good product, how to launch, all that kind of stuff. Instead of going through YouTube or articles or God forbid the Facebook groups, which has so much noise. We were able to get somebody that was teaching us hopping on calls with us, and I think that was instrumental because we made way less mistakes in the beginning. We still made countless mistakes, but now we're a part of MDS, the $1 Million Seller Group. So it's 250 people that all join, or that join and all generate over $1 million in sales per year. So that's super helpful. We've joined other entrepreneurship organizations. A lot of our closest guy friends are entrepreneurs. And so I think being surrounded by people that you can learn from, and some of our friends are amazing at building social media. They have social media accounts with maybe 400,000 followers. So it's if we have questions around that, we're just gonna get dinner or grab a drink with them and learn about that. Or like Nick mentioned earlier, we have a friend that sold his first company at 21, for an obscene amount. And so for a lot of general business, we'll ask him. And so I think having that network of people that can help you with specific areas, or even if they're not an expert, but they can kind of bounce ideas off with you, that's huge. Because I think so many people, especially in the Amazon game, Amazon is this really unique ecosystem where it's about entrepreneurship, but because everyone's doing the same private label products, everyone's super guarded about it, right? So then we're normal startups or whatever, everyone's really quick to tell you what they're doing and why it's important, why it's going to change the world. But in Amazon, everyone's I'm in home and kitchen, and it's really this guarded thing, which I understand, and that makes sense. But I think we were so closed off for the first 2 years where we didn't talk to other Amazon sellers. We were just kind of in our own zone. And I think that was fine, but we've definitely grown a lot as entrepreneurs and as business owners, by putting ourselves out there, networking with other Amazon entrepreneurs. 'Cause you realize they've got their own stuff that they're working on. It'd be a real dick to just go and try to copy your entire store. So I feel we're much more confident about just going out and meeting more people now.
Awesome. And maybe do you guys have any genius work life hack to balance, and make things quicker and easier, and like what's your go-to tool or anything along those lines?
Oh, okay. I got like two. Like they're not like I don't know if they're genius, but like one is text expander, which I really love. So it just like has like little shortcuts, and then it just elongates everything. Oh, wow. So like home addresses, phone numbers, like my recruiting message, like anything that I type like all the time, like parking instructions to my building, like I don't know, all the things I would fill out like on a bank form, like all of those things that you type like on a consistent basis, all have shortcuts. And then so I never have to type anything like. Or now we have an EA, which I think is also a life hack because she fills them out for me. And then I think the second one is like a meal plan. Like if you guys like honestly, because I spend like a lot of time like trying to eat healthy, so like going to the grocery store and like cooking and everything else. Meal plan solved everything, and it's a write-off. So yeah, do it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I would say for me, I'm really ADD. Like, I can get distracted so easily. So if you send me like a case, a support ticket, I'll just like start going like in a hole, looking at different things. So I think one big hack for me that I took from my last company was really prioritizing and thinking, okay, what are two things, two most important things I need to get done today? And because it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where it's so easy to get trapped in being busy versus being effective. And I think, if I spend the first 10 minutes of my day just thinking about, okay, these are all my tasks. I have them literally in like a note app. And I look at them and I just prioritize. I say, okay, these are the two things that are going to move the ball forward the most and actually the things I've been avoiding the most. And if I can finish those two things, even if I don't finish everything else, then I'm good. Like I know that I've tackled the most difficult and most important things. And I think day to day, it's so easy to just go into your email and then get lost, or go to Slack. For us, it's like a trap. So, I really try not to look at my email in the first 2 hours of the day. And I know it annoys some people, but it just really helps me because I'm able to just get the most important things done.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then the pressure's off, so you actually are in a better mood for the rest of the day because you've done the most important thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Guys, that was excellent. Thank you for that. I appreciate you guys answering all these questions. But let's give it over to the floor. So, guys, if you got questions, Chris, I don't know where's the other Chris. Do you want to pass the mic around? Yeah, you take it.
Oh, thank you very much. I think I've learned a lot already. Where do you guys find your people to work?
Onlinejobs.ph is a great one. If you're talking about like overseas, onlinejobs.ph. You can also like proactively hit people up on LinkedIn. But now we have an HR manager, so she does most of it for us. But online jobs is usually a pretty typical place to get it done.
Upwork is a good one as well.
Yeah, Upwork. Yeah.
Hey, I actually got 3 questions.
Okay.
Tom.
Alright, 2.
No, kidding. Yeah.
First one is who were your first 5 hires or 3 hires in like number 1, number 2, number 3, and looking back, would you hire them?
Second question.
Or would it be the same sequence or positions?
Okay, so our first one was like kind of customer support and admin.
Mm-hmm.
The second one was sourcing, and I think the third one was also sourcing.
Yeah. What about?
Oh, actually no, Chris. Yeah, okay, sorry. So actually, the second one was like kind of like an operations manager, which was supposed to oversee sourcing and inventory planning, and then the third one was like a sourcing person. And so yeah, I mean, I think that was like probably like the right order, I would say. Like for sure, like I think one of the ways that I like look at what positions to kind of like hire for is like, okay, how much time are we spending? And then also like compare that to like how much it would cost to like replace that person like overseas. And so like I think for like a majority of roles, like 90%, you could do it for under $5 an hour. And we should all be valuing our time at like, let's say $50 an hour, $100 an hour. And so if it can be done for like a fraction of like what your rate is, then like that should be like the first thing that you can like push off, especially if there's like a higher like dollar per hour task that you could be doing, like finding new products, like raising money, like recruiting like the best possible people. And so I think like that's really at the end of the day like what like that we try to like focus on is like recruiting the best people, like focusing on like financing, so making sure that we're in a good cash position, that we're raising money if we need to, and honestly, and keeping those really talented people happy.
Second question is, when it comes to product research, you guys touch base on margins and how fast you can turn over cash and things like that. What are some other criteria that you guys look for?
Yeah, I mean, so for sure we're looking at reviews. So we're trying to like target like products that usually have less than like 150 like reviews like on the first page. Just because it's more saturated, obviously. Like, I mean, reviews are like the social currency, obviously. So trying to like blow past somebody with that many reviews, like to us, is just not really worth it. We're looking for products that are not going to be like quickly like imitated, like where everyone's just going to come in. Like you guys, I'm sure, have seen like the products that are like, you know, just like it's listed with a bunch of Chinese like sellers already, and where I see like a ton of people just, you know, come up with their really unique brand and like, oh, they have all these misspellings and everything else, which is fine, but like I think it's gonna be really hard to compete on price, and so like, we'll definitely avoid those. And so yeah, we also like avoid like products that are overly like complicated, I would say. So like tons of moving pieces, like electronics, stuff like that. But like on the flip side, like the stuff that we're also like, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because we also want to do products that other people aren't willing to do. So like oversized products or heavier products where, you know, like I mentioned earlier, like a ton of people, like a lot of the people out there are like, you know, find this like really small, lightweight product that's in the shoe, like fits in the shoebox. But like that's what everyone else is doing. Everyone else is going to those like web apps, like, you know, John Wisconsin Market Intelligence, and I love those guys. But like everyone else is using that exact same app, so you're going to get the exact same results because you're using the exact same filters. And so I would personally, like our team, it doesn't even have access to those.
And the last question is, because you guys said you guys launch 10 to 15 products per month, so you guys probably have a really good launch strategy and always keep up to date. What is your current kind of overview of your launch strategy look like?
You know, our philosophy on product launches is that, you know, so much of it is based off of how non-competitive the category is. You know, so our launch strategy is we're launching 10 to 15 products a month. Not all of them are going to hit. A lot of them hit well, but we're doing smaller orders to just test it out first. And so we're confident in our ability to move quickly if the product is promising. But you know, you have to take into account that, like, you know, you can't put lipstick on a pig. I mean, you could, but it's still like an ugly product. And so, you know, you got to be willing to look at the certain signs that tell you whether or not that product is a dud or not. And I think it's so easy to get emotionally invested in a product that you put a lot of money behind. And I think it's important to be real with yourself and say, okay, well, the ACOS is like 150%. It's been 150% for the past 3 weeks. You know, there's a lot of competitors. Like, I'm not the best priced one. You know, I just don't think I have a huge competitive advantage. Maybe I should just liquidate this product, make 70% back, and then just try something new. You know, again, it's a factor of time. So I would say that, you know, our launch strategy, you know, comes down to having, we honestly don't even do giveaways most of the time, because, you know, we have our product selection down pat. And so I think a lot of it comes down to how competitive your category is, how strong your competitors are, and whether you can dominate. And we're really looking for niches that we're looking to dominate in. Because, you know, we've had so many SKUs where it did really well in the first 6 months, and then all of a sudden, like 10 people enter, and our margins massively start decreasing, our revenue decreases, and that was like a normal cycle of our product. But then we realized that the products that did the best were the ones where we consistently launched more and more, and we cannibalized our own sales. So I would say our strategy when it comes to product launches is more strategic and long-term thinking. You know, I think all that stuff is important, like the giveaways, PPC obviously, understanding those fundamentals. You know, also knowing how to optimize your listing well is really important, having good images. But more importantly is being able to move fast from your, you know, from your difficulties. I think Jeff Bezos, he wrote this letter, and He says, it's okay to make a bad decision. You need to make a decision when you have 70% of the information you think is available in front of you. If you wait until you have 100%, that you've waited too long to make that decision. And so I think for us, we try to move towards that direction where it's not so important that we're right every time. It's more important that we're able to recover quickly from the bad decisions that we make. And I think in the long term, that's more important.
Oh, actually, and just to add to that, actually, like one of the tip, because we were missing a tip, right? Is and Nick just really briefly touched on it, but I think it's such an important piece. Is don't get married to a specific product, because like it happens all the time. Like all of our new hires, like they're like, look, they find this perfect product, and they're super excited, and they're reaching out to all these manufacturers, and the pricing just doesn't work. It doesn't meet our criteria for a new product. And then so they're going to reach out to 10 more manufacturers, and they're going to just keep going. But like our business is set up the complete opposite. Like we should almost be like looking for products that don't like meet the criteria, and that's great because we're just like trying to move through it quickly. And then so like if the first 3 prices come back and it doesn't work, it's not even close, like we move on. Like, and it's just like it's kind of churning and burning. But like I think like the ultimate takeaway is just don't get married to a specific product. Because you'll just waste a ton of time.
Hi folks, thank you for being here. I've learned a lot this evening. Your product development team, I'd like to understand better the makeup of a product development team that's doing 10 to 15 products a month, both in terms of how many are on the product development team and how their responsibilities are divided up. Is it by category or how that's done? So anything you could fill in, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so we have actually a relatively lean product development team because we kind of split the responsibilities. So we have our category management team, which is in charge of overseeing a lot of our listings. So everything from the optimization to pricing, all that kind of stuff. And so they are also in charge of having a relationship with our suppliers. So then finding what's in their existing product catalogs that's going to do well and then launching. So they have their own specific KPI for how many products to launch. And then we have the new products team, which I'm more focused on. And then so I have one right-hand person. We're gonna build out that team a little bit further so that we can continue to scale like a hockey stick, I guess. But yeah, we're building out, and then she has a specific counterpart that's in charge of sourcing. So it's basically one person that's looking for new product categories, and then kind of running through the the merchandising and okay, what's going to be the strategy, and then they have the counterpart that's actually based in China, and then they're in charge of getting all the pricing and everything else, and then they just work in tandem, so they kind of tag team.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
I got a short one and a sort of a long one. Well, I have 2 virtual assistants. What software would you use at that point to manage?
No.
Well, in terms of time tracking software, Hubstaff works pretty well. So yeah, we use that. So our team is distributed. Everyone is remote. So we always talk about, and we stole this from Netflix, freedom and responsibility. Right? It's important that we give you guys freedom. You guys have the privilege to work from home, but you also have a responsibility to the company, and that means treating it like an office job. So we're going to record screenshots. We're not going to look into it unless something tells us that we need to, and we have a minimum activity level, which is 60%. So if they can hit that 60%, then we know that on average they're usually doing pretty well. But it obviously depends on the role.
Second question I had to do. You said you guys are college friends. Have you ever run into any partnership problems, and how do you go about dealing with that?
We've never fought.
You want me to sit in between?
Can you leave the room? No, honestly, I mean, look, in any partnership, right? In any marriage or whatever. I mean, this is kind of a marriage, right? You're gonna have disagreements, and it's not about whether you have a disagreement. It's about how you manage those disagreements. And I think Fernando and I, from day one, we said that we're best friends, and there's nothing that's gonna get in between that. And there are times where I'm sure we're upset or we resent each other from time to time, but every time after we fight, we always get up and say, hey, I love you, man, and we hug. And I think that's really, really important. because there's no doubt in my mind that I could not have done this without Fernando, and I'm sure he feels the same way, I hope. But yeah, I think it's so important to have that level of communication and trust, because if, he has my bank accounts, he has all my passwords, my girlfriend doesn't even have that, and if I can't, trust him to do those things, then there's something wrong with, how deeply our futures are intertwined. So, yeah, I mean, we definitely get in fights, disagreements, but I think we've learned how to resolve them, and, we every single year, we also write out a sheet where we talk about what our goals are. Like, what do we personally want? Like, in 10 years, where do we want to be? By the time we're 35, what are our personal goals? And how can we help each other get there? And that's, what we always try to do to make sure that we're in line in terms of, making sure that we're partners in helping each other push forward into, like, our dreams, some of which are related and some of which aren't, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nick nailed it. But I think like over time, like we've definitely gotten like better as business partners as well. Like in any relationship, right? You like understand the person better. Like you like understand what their triggers are, and like what is like a good way to approach it, what's like a bad way to approach it. And so I think it's like having that like honesty and that like communication that like has really like improved. And yeah, I mean, we'll still definitely get into disagreements, but I think we like recover through them like a lot faster now, which is like awesome. You know what I mean? And like I'm sure there's like a lot of like difficult conversations that we had maybe this year that would have been like a much bigger deal in year one. But now that we're both better at like communicating and like understanding like where the other person's coming from, it gets definitely a lot easier.
I want to add. Yeah, just to add to that point as well, and it's something that I learned, which is, conflict and the resolution of conflict actually creates a much deeper relationship. And I think as soon as I understood that, I wouldn't spend as much time avoiding conflict, because I was like, if I can face this right now and give good feedback, that relationship with that person is going to get deeper. And so that helped me a lot from avoiding it rather than facing it and tackling it.
Quick one. You have over 200 products probably. Are they all under one brand? Which categories are you guys in?
Should we name the brands? No. Yeah, we have multiple accounts. We have home and kitchen, office, health and post. Yeah, supplements. Like we have pets.
Multiple brands.
Yeah, multiple markets. We're in retail now as well. Like so, yeah, we're. But yeah, again, like just like. For those, like, just not to contradict, like, I mean, we have teams, like, we have a specific team that's focused on, like, retail. So, like, neither of us are, like, really, like, involved. Like, we'll sit in on some meetings, but, like, yeah, overall, like, there's people that are, like, leading each kind of initiative, I guess you would say.
And that's a diversification strategy.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's actually, it was really nice. So, like, I mean, for those that, are, like, now have maybe some, like, bestsellers or, like, Amazon's choice, like, I mean, we were like really fortunate to be bestsellers in like quite a few different categories. So, and then like retailers actually started reaching out to us. So, so that's been like a cool like evolution of our company, is where they reach out, we like get like good with like one buyer, and they're like, oh, actually, do you happen to have this? And then it's kind of like a land and expand strategy. So now like in certain retailers, like we started with like one product line. Now we have like, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 different SKUs. Like, we're in talks with like Walmart and like, a bunch of different like massive retailers. And it's all just kind of been funded by this like Amazon thing.
Amazing.
Hey, I want to first thank you guys for coming and speaking. It's been really helpful, and you guys have dropped a lot of knowledge bombs. I had a couple of questions about, I guess, some of the topics you brought up earlier. So when you guys were talking about testing out products, you said that you had small orders. So what constitutes as a small order? An order of 200 units, 500 units, 1,000 units, 2,000,
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's all relative. Like when I say small because it's small relative to what we started off with. When we first started off, we got used to doing a lot of giveaways. And I remember like we were regularly doing POs of like $40,000 to $50,000 for our first order. And so we really got screwed with like a lot of like bad inventory. And so now it's more of a general rule of something around $6,000 to $8,000 on our first order. If it's less, even better, but somewhere around like a month and a half worth of inventory. And so where it's like not so crazy, you know, to where we would like be devastated if it didn't work out. And if we even sold it at a discount, like maybe 50% off, it wouldn't be a huge deal to us. So I think you have to think about it relative to what your budget is. But for us, that tends to be around that mark.
Okay. And also, I guess on the secondary portion of that question was, since you said you don't do giveaways now and you guys did in the past, how do you guys test it now?
You know, we basically try to maximize our indexation. So there's this, you know, there's this great guy, Anthony Lee, and he recently released like this article talking about Amazon indexation and about the honeymoon period. And his theory is that, you know, you can refresh your listing by actually removing all the copy, putting one word, and then putting that copy back on, and then basically hard resetting it so that you can index for all your keywords. And the theory is that the honeymoon period, which is the first 14 days of your listing being active, and you notice it's easy for you to rank, it's easy for you to get to the first page for certain keywords. It's because Amazon's allowing you to have full indexation relevancy for those keywords. And so we basically want to maximize that window by having high PPC, by making sure that we're fully indexed for all the keywords, by optimizing it. And also, over a period of 2 weeks, we'll have a good sense of what are our normalized sales, and we'll do a giveaway, if we feel like, okay, this is really lagging, we feel like there's more opportunity. But yeah, our goal is, I think we did like an analysis and it was like, we know within 7 to 8 weeks if a product is a dud. So usually we want to make a hard decision within 7 to 8 weeks. And that's, I think some red flags are like, if the ACoS is 150% constantly, I think even if it's 100 to 150% at the outset, that's an indication to me that there aren't that many keywords for you to target, and a lot of those keywords are pretty smattered with competition. So that's one red flag. I'm trying to think of what my other ones are. I think another one is whether or not your margins or ROI hit that certain amount over a certain period of time. So I think those are two factors that we're looking at in terms of whether or not that product is something that we want to continue.
So can I ask one more real quick?
Yeah.
How much would you? What's the percentage of organic versus PPC or advertised sales? Because ACoS is an important number,
Sure.
but that only shows you a small portion of the picture.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. I think a lot of times people focus too much on ACoS. I think if you're in a competitive category, your ACoS is going to be high. So I think it's all relative to what your sales number is. So I actually like to look at PPC spend to revenue ratio. And to me, I'm comfortable with like an 8% PPC spend of my revenue, assuming my margins are like 30 or 40%. And that means that I still have 32% to work with, and I'm comfortable with that. I don't want to have a product that I have less than 30% margin on, unless it's turning over really quickly, so I might make an exception. But yeah, I think it's all dependent on your category. If you're doing let's say supplements, that could be a super high ACoS category, but that might be okay because you're just trying to get some visibility. As long as you're still profitable on the whole, for your SKU, then that's fine. So that's why, we mentioned earlier, we weren't doing SKU level reports. We didn't even understand how profitable we were on a per SKU basis, on a week to week basis. And this was before Hello Profit or Seller Legend came out. And so, being able to have that insight now is so incredible and so valuable to making this business work for us.
Can I just ask a question on, just a quick question, but going back to buying that stock, what's your thoughts on staying in stock versus out of stock, especially in that first period versus later on? I guess especially if you're starting with just a month and a half of stock, and it takes off, you might run out. So what's your guys' thoughts there?
Yeah, it's kind of unavoidable. I think it really just depends on your strategy and so I think some people will maybe do let's say one product a month, and I think that's great, and they're gonna really focus on the one product, so they're gonna carry more stock, let's say 3-4 months of inventory, they're gonna do a blast, and they're gonna really ensure that product does well, and I think that's a perfectly fine strategy. Ours, we wanted to avoid the giveaways, and then because we know that it racks up a ton of money really quickly, so we're okay doing a lot of smaller tests over a lot of products. We're gonna run out. We just know it's very likely, but we're gonna know which ones did well. We're gonna restock them really quickly, and then if we can, we'll air ship some. and then just focus on like taking over that niche. And then so it's like it's for us, it's like a faster way of like testing, but like, yeah, you're totally right. Like if you go out of stock the first time, it's definitely sometimes harder to get back into and get to the same place. But overall, like we see it as like a good way to not be stuck with a ton of inventory, because I think that's like the worst. Like for whatever reason, like you just get really unlucky. 15 more people come in like right before you, and then like you just have like 1,000 units, which isn't like that bad, but like just we also noticed that a lot of our team was spending a lot of time trying to clear out that inventory, which isn't like the best use of like energy and like resources. So like we try to make those like tests smaller, so that like our team can really focus on like launching more products.
So I think I'll just hit 2 more questions, one there and one over here. So yeah, just those 2, and then we're going to be hanging around so you guys can ask questions too.
Let's say you identify a product. There's still a lot that needs to be done. So you need to figure out who the manufacturer is going to be. And you need to get in a box that you like. You need to put some creative art labeling around that box. Then you need to ship that to FBA probably. Do you find one manufacturer that does all of that, or do you have to go from a wholesaler to some packager and then ship that to FBA? What does that process look like typically?
Yeah, I mean, we find one manufacturer that can do it all. Honestly, I mean, you got to think about it this way. People are buying from Amazon. They don't see the packaging. It's not like retail where they're really sticklers about packaging. A lot of our packaging is incredibly simple. It's like on a cardboard carton. You got to think of it like a proof of concept. You launch your product, you identify whether it's good or not, and you can improve your packaging over time. But to be frank, I mean, we have some bestsellers that have terrible packaging, probably because I designed them. And like, honestly, they're still bestsellers, and it's never impacted us really. I don't think I can really think about how many times people actually mention the packaging in the review. So again, I think this comes down to focusing on the right thing, right? Make sure your product is good. Make sure it's not shitty. It doesn't break. That it'll, be sent to the customer in one piece. And if the product is good, it doesn't matter what the packaging looks like. They will leave a positive review. And so, I think a lot of people can get really like just hooked on, oh, the packaging needs to look perfect, blah, blah. I think the images are way more important than the packaging. And that's something that can be totally done while the thing is being produced. So I would say, just slap on a picture of your logo, slap on your UPC, create a proof of concept, launch a product, and focus on customizing the perception of your product through the images. That's going to be the most impact versus what they receive.
So you said something about in the first 2 weeks, Amazon indexing your keywords and everything. So, and then you got to run the PPC and launch it. And I see this in a lot of FBA groups, people saying, should you launch PPC without any reviews or not? So if you're doing that in the first 2 weeks, are you getting reviews to launch them, or are you just PPC without reviews and just going at it with your pictures?
I should hear about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like the chicken or egg thing. I like, it depends on the situation. Ideally, you have reviews before you do the PPC, but we're comfortable just like driving traffic, and we've had experiences where even without reviews, we know we're going to get reviews within the week because we've already created like the strategy. It's going to show up in the next couple days, so we'll leave the listing open so that we can gather data on keywords using PPC. Again, I mean, I don't think that like if you're a beginner, if you really want to, keep your money tight to your chest, which totally makes sense, I would probably activate the listing, focus on selling it really quickly to people who will leave a review, then close it, get reviews, and then open it up again, and then drive PPC traffic to it. So you can really maximize it. But I think I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's really about how it works in the long run. But ideally, you get the reviews first, and then you drive the PPC.
Dudes, that was amazing, man. There's a lot of knowledge in I think we've probably gone a little long as well, but there's an amazing amount in that. So I look forward to breaking that down into some good nuggets, and also sharing that with everyone here. So overall, guys, thank you, man. That was amazing. I appreciate it. Yeah. And thanks a lot.